Welcome back to the official episode number 2 of our podcast. We actually recorded another podcast episode before this, but we did it on our walk. And funny enough, the whole episode was about how, I don't want to say bad of a day we were having, but how nothing was going right in that day and how we were turning it around and looking on the bright side anyway. And then we listened back to the audio and it was horrible. So that was another thing to add to that day.
The only thing that was horrible about it, though, was the fact that we forgot to hit the noise cancellation button on the microphones that we had. So it was picking up every single outside factor noise possible, and that's why it was bad. The message was great. The audio was pretty bad.
Yeah. The episode would have been fire. Maybe we'll keep it in the tank as like a bonus because, again, the episode was great. And I like when in real time you can hear the reframes rather than like, this is what I did 10 years ago to get here. Like, I really enjoy people talking about the messy as they're going through it, and that's what that episode was. But speaking of the messy, today's episode is going to be a backtrack of taking you through how and why we left our growing business at the height of its growth, at a time when, like, on paper, it didn't make any sense to leave. But for many reasons, that was a decision that we had to make.
Yeah. So it actually started before we met. It was something that was kind of just fell on my lap at the tail end of 2011.
So I didn't even tell them what this business was, if you want to tell them what.
So it's sports cards and gaming. So a lot of it is driven towards kids as well as adults. We did Pokemon, Magic the Gathering, and sports cards and memorabilia. So I actually grew up in this same exact business, name and all. When I was a kid, my brother was in fact the manager for the original owner in the late 90s to the early 2000s. And then he left to go start a career in corporate America. And then late 2011, we got the call from the gentleman who bought it from the original owner, who we also knew, and then asked if we were interested in, and that decision was clearly yeah. So that fell in my lap. I was 19, turning 20, and
it was already a very transitional time in your life. So, like, if it would have fell in your lap any other time, it may not have made sense, but it made perfect sense at the time because you were already in such a transition in life, which as a 19-year-old is crazy to say.
Right. I had to grow up real fast, not just because of a business owner, but for other things that we'll dive into in later episodes. But so we started the business, finally got everything, the paperwork done, and incorporated was officially in 2012. And as some of you know, Tatiana and I met in 2016, and that's when our story started. So, working through not even knowing how the first thing to run this style of business. I was familiar with other businesses because I grew up in the restaurant industry with my family, but this particular business in the retail world wasn't something I was comfortable with making decisions that involved financials or just day-to-day operations as well, because I was there left alone. My brother, he still had his job in corporate America, so it was just me running the place until he got off that job to come and help out when needed. So years passed. I met Tatiana. We started dating, and then there was a point in time where I was working, I don't know, 70 hours a week, probably 6 days a week.
Well, when I first met you in 2016, you were already working that much because you were the only one manning the whole operation at the time. So I walked into a lifestyle of you working 6 days a week, however, 11 hours, 10 hours a day. I don't even freaking know.
Some days longer than others. Some days were, the shortest day was 7 hours. Longest day was, some of those were probably 13 hours. And then there was a couple of those a week. But then as we got closer, we moved in together. We started a family, of course. Our daughter turned 1 in the peak of COVID. literally 7 days before everything started shutting down in the United States.
What a wild time.
So, none of this stuff was kind of obvious to make decisions during COVID. A lot of stuff needed to be pivoted, and you just went with the flow with COVID, or you needed to find ways to kind of change everything and try and grow and not just get sucked in. So we did. And that was a wild 2 years, because even though where we live, it was kind of just open state, the restrictions were minimal. Everybody was just kind of jealous of Florida. But we definitely made it. It was the best thing that ever happened to our business, because the collectible world just blew up again.
People were bored in their houses with nothing to do. And
finding all their old stuff, going through it, re-sparked their interest in collecting.
And it was such a wildfire. People saw like their friends and stuff doing it again, so they were like getting back into it. And that definitely...
Social media blew up even more, not just with our industry in general, but because you're stuck at home, everybody's screen time absolutely just went through the roof, even more than it probably already was. So the exposure was the benefactor of the business blowing up.
And then at some point, it became a lot, because the business grew so well, and it was, everything we wanted as far as revenue and profitability and all of that. But on the back end, it required a lot of time away from family during a time when, again, the world was shut down. So really a lot of people were spending more time with their families, but we were spending more time apart for that reason. And that,
the big shift, of course, was the business could either crumble, or I think every business owner spent more time in their business if they were trying to make it survive than with their family. So even if you worked a 9 to 5, you spent more time with your family, because you were either getting unemployment, or you got furloughed, or you got fired. But if you were a business owner and you were in charge of your own business, you were likely trying to do every and anything possible to make that business survive, because that was your livelihood. So
a lot of people's businesses crumbled through COVID. Did. So I mean, that's why I feel like this episode is like kind of hard to make, because we have been very blessed to have been able to grow through COVID, but with that came a lot of restraints and hardships on our family, as far as, and honestly, like, let's be real, nothing was actually hard. Like, he wasn't actually working more than the average person, or like, our life wasn't bad. Our life was absolutely very great, but we had to like be really, really honest with ourselves and realize, especially once we got through the pandemic, where we could actually just make more decisions and weren't like strangleholded by businesses being closed and masks and all that stuff. But like, although we had a successful business, we weren't actually living the life that we were building the business for.
Right.
Like, our day-to-day wasn't what we actually wanted to be. It wasn't fueling us. It wasn't the dream. And we could have...
There was a lot of restrictions too, because even though it was trying to be built for the intentions and the heights that it wanted to be taken to, because of shortages for the products or supplies and everything needed to run it, it was one of those things where it was a supply demand was the benefactor. So if something was going for $10, you were able to easily get 40, no different than people with the hand sanitizer and stuff like that, because you weren't getting a ton of it. So you just maximized what you could get, because you didn't know the next time you would get it, and you needed to take all the money you could, because you needed to fund the store, fund your family, fund all the operations, etc. But again, all the realization happened that shifted, not even necessarily just because of COVID, but also the working hours mattered more, because we now had a child involved. It wasn't just the two of us, where she was doing one thing, I was doing another. We come home, spend a bunch of time together, yada yada. So you fast forward even more years, and mind you, we've never had a regressing year. Every single year has been, I think our worst growing year was like 12%.
That's so awesome.
Like, that's like the worst. And that happened like 1 or 2 times. And actually during COVID, we hit our first 7-figure year. So
during a
during
global
COVID. Yeah,
pandemic.
absolutely. And like that was, I mean, we're not the only one. There's tons out there, and I do feel bad for the ones that did close. So that's part of when we talk about in another episode our journeys, and then why decisions were made too, because I truly had a lot of friends too that lost their businesses during this, and I feel bad. And different times, right? So different industries, different needs, different wants. Some people were able to do it because of they had access. They still had access to the things that they needed for their business, where the businesses that went under, they could have went under for many reasons. Money, couldn't get supplies, lost employees, you name it. So it could have just been out of their control, whereas much like other people, we were blessed and fortunate. So
yeah. And I mean, we did the hard work of like pivoting, marketing differently. Like, you know, you have to change.
We never even had a website. So we don't sell online at all, like, period. So when I tell you that, like, we do 7 figures in store or revenue, like, it's all in store. Like, we still don't do online. We have a website up because we need to. It just informs people of like what's new. Follow us on our social media. If you don't have social media, all the posts go to the website so you can kind of see it and follow it there because you don't need a login. Or like pre-orders for like the gaming stuff, like the Pokemon and Magic cards. But it's we still don't sell online because we're very big. This business, when it started in 1991, it was local driven. It was a community-based business, and you wanted to keep everything local to your people. And we can sell stuff online all day, every day. But then if we run out, and our locals that have been coming, we've had people that still come and shop since my brother was the manager from 1998. There's still people that have come to Shortstops from 1998.
Yeah, which definitely has made it that much harder when we did make the decision to pivot away, because there's been so much loyalty. There's been so much brand loyalty before you guys took over the business, and then especially after it was built up to be what it is, like since 2012, under new ownership and everything. And yeah, it's hard when that's like been your whole life and it's doing well and growing, and like no real reason on paper to make the decision to pivot away from it other than the fact that it's the golden handcuffs, right? It's the same exact situation that like you climb the corporate ladder and you get more and more money and you have it like dangled in front of you and you can keep growing and growing, but you have to put in more time, effort, and like be away from your family and miss out on the vacations and miss all the school trips and miss the parent meeting at 12 p.m. on a random Thursday, and you know, all the things that like everybody can decide what and how they want to live their life, but those are things that are really important to us. We want to be able to take the trips and see our daughter, you know, through every single milestone. And there came a point in time where it got really heavy on us because Travis was missing a lot of it. And I had the opportunity to stay home and do everything I need to do, like online, but like be present with my daughter. But in order for this business to keep growing the way it did, Travis had to be away from us a lot, or we spent a lot of time raising her in the shop as well. But
a lot of the customers fell in love with her. Like, I mean,
yeah.
They constantly just bring her stuff still.
Yeah.
They stop by and drop stuff, and my brother will text me or let me know, and they ask about her, and some of them still come to her birthday parties.
Definitely is a family, especially because like it's a local card shop, not an online card shop. So again, you're building a whole community. You're building friendships. There's people that Travis has seen grow up in the shop who started like so socially awkward and shy. And I remember when I first started coming around, and I would walk into the shop, and you could hear a pin drop. Like nobody was breathing. They didn't know how to like function around new people. But they were so comfortable with each other because they've just built like this incredible community that they really all like love and trust each other. And you know, how do you build that up and then make a decision that like this isn't actually my dream, and at what point are you going to put yourself first and rip off the golden handcuffs and, you know, or decide to keep growing this business? I feel like you could do that forever. Like it's a no-brainer at this point. You could do it in your sleep because it's been happening for so long, and especially through a pandemic. Like if you can do anything through a pandemic, you can do anything in regular times, right?
Maybe you should elaborate just on a quick like summary definition of what golden handcuffs are, because some people might not know what that is.
Well, luckily I've never had to like personally experience the the golden handcuffs for the way that like they're technically the definition is, but when you're like this is really a term that's used in the corporate ladder when you're, always fighting to get the next position, and your whole goal is to make more money and get higher up in a company that's not yours, but it's with the promise of, more money right in front of you. So although you're putting more on your plate and you're spending more time away from your kids and your family and doing all these things, that
getting more money.
Yeah, you're getting more money. It is filling your cup, and then like, oh, you go to leave, but hold on, but what if we give you $30,000 more per year? And then it's like, oh, okay, well, I guess I will stay and keep these, again, golden handcuffs, because you're getting more money and more of, the juicy stuff you want in life. Like, maybe we'll give you an extra week of vacation, and that's an easy way to talk you out of actually like jumping out of your dream to live full time with your family, which is the actual dream. But if I keep these golden handcuffs on you, which promise you just a little bit more time off and a little more money and just enough to keep you happy, then you'll stay. But at some point, if you don't rip those off, if you realize you're not in alignment with like who you actually be and how you actually want to live, you're never going to actually be able to obtain those, because you're always going to be chasing the little bit of more money that's offered, or the little more freedom, in order to keep you stuck but have the illusion of all the accolades that you're actually chasing.
So a big TLDR would be, imagine just somebody constantly offering you gold to sacrifice what you actually want out of things.
Yeah.
And that's effectively the golden handcuffs. And, Tatiana was saying that I would miss things. I never missed anything big. And this is where the golden handcuffs kind of hurt, because I had to be the one to put it in perspective. Someone could tell me or show me or not say it at all, which she never said anything to me. I had to come to the realization on my own, which was like 10 times worse than if it was just pointed out to me. I never missed anything big through all the cheer events and competitions, and
because luckily we did have our own business and
right.
Your brother was running it with you, especially when we had Milani, so you could be like, hey, I'm stepping away for this, or you could always step away. It was never like, I have to, you're not allowed to. That wasn't a thing. It was
all the small things that I missed. So nothing even like really pertaining to our daughter specifically, but I didn't go to the cheer practices because I was working when those started, or her friends' birthday parties. They were always on like a Saturday, and my days off were Wednesdays and Sundays. So from when I was working 6 days, I transitioned to 2 days off a week after our daughter was born, stuff like that. And their parties were always on Saturdays, or again, a random weekday that wasn't a Wednesday that things were going on. So
playdates, even
playdates. Those. It's all the small things that, again, not even 100% pertain to our daughter, but involve them.
And those little things don't matter to everybody, but we do want to go to all of them if possible, and we do want to take the random family trips, and that just matters a lot to us. And I know a lot of dads or whatever don't mind missing the cheer practice, because what are they doing? They're not helping them cheer anyway. Like, cheer's not your forte. I get that. But it does mean a lot to us to
It's the whole there. Showing up matters thing. Like, I left going on 3 months now.
Wow.
Or stepped aside, I should say, almost 3 months now. And I can tell you every single day I can see a difference in our daughter's face when I'm at something that I wouldn't normally be at this point, such as a cheer practice, or just even the energy of the cheer team, because I never missed a competition or a local showcase or anything like that, or even the games on the mornings that they cheered for the football team. All the parents and stuff, because I'm out there in the cheering section with all the other parents cheering as if I'm on the field with them, getting the girls going, making them excited, this and that, so they all love me for who I am.
He's the fun dad. I mean, he's the fun person, but
all the kids on the team call me uncle. So I don't know how that happened, but I embrace it. And they make it very specific that I have to call them nephew and niece followed by their name. So instead of me just calling them by their name, I have to go, oh, niece X or nephew Y. And it's actually pretty cute and funny. So this year we actually have a really good team. But back to the...
Can you think of... And this is putting on the spot, because we didn't actually prepare for this episode, by the way. We're just hoping it comes together the way we want. But can you think of a time specifically where you were like, I can't do this anymore, like this is the final straw, or like something that really put it into perspective, or what time that really hurt your heart?
I remove our daughter. Like I said, our daughter turned 1 during the height of COVID, or the beginning of it, I should say. So I remove up until she was 3. So really, I just focus on the last 3 years because COVID was COVID, right? It's just
you gotta do what you gotta do through a pandemic.
Correct. It's something we didn't know. So it's not that I regret or I'm not willing to regret or anything. I'm just gonna give myself a pass at that point. So from when she was 3...
Time out. You don't just need a pass. You grew a company during a pandemic. So that's not even just giving you a pass. Like that was so worth it. It was necessary. I'm so proud of you. So I don't want you to just give yourself a pass.
Sure.
But I know what you mean, but
I wasn't hard on myself because it wasn't even on the forefront of my mind. It was survival mode. Yeah. It was fight or flight. And so, but focusing on like 3 to 6, we kind of talked about this before she turned 6. And then just the business blew up. It needed me, the golden handcuffs, right? But then it came to a point where I sat there one day and somebody came in with their kids and they had just talked about how they just stepped away from their business, and one of the things was that they get to spend more time with their kid. And I'd always talked about wanting to spend more time with our daughter and everything like that, but then I sat down and I realized the amount of hours in a day that I spend with my kid versus the amount of hours I can spend, but the amount of hours that I'm with other people. So, for instance, I only work 7 hours a day at the time. So I even more drastically cut down my schedule because of our daughter's extracurricular activities with sports and everything. I would leave early, like an hour early, whatever the case may be. But it got to the point where when she wakes up in the morning to go to school, and then from when I get off of work to when she goes to bed, I'm working 7 hours a day, but I'm only seeing my kid for 4.5 hours a day. And then I sat there and it didn't really sit well. And then something would happen, the store would get busy and then it would distract me. And then it would do really well and need my attention. But then I would sit there and think about how I missed something. And then now I'm back to square one where I'm thinking about how many hours I'm spending with everybody that comes in to support us versus the amount of hours I'm spending for my undivided attention with my family. And at that moment was absolutely like the final straw for me. I tried to, push through and try to find a way to make it both work, and it couldn't happen. And I never really got pushback on, I need to leave early, or there's a competition I need to go to this weekend or whatever. But I also knew that with those aligning to, we want to go on a 4-day vacation, to, we're right back, we have another competition the next week, that would become an issue at some point. So I needed to have a separation and decide which one was more important to me, and I'm always going to choose my family. So that was absolutely probably, I don't want to say the gentleman's name, but when he walked in and had that conversation about him leaving his job, that was probably the moment. And I want to say that was probably closer to, it was Q4 of 2024. So, like I said, we had talked about, okay, are we going to leave at the end of the year at 2024, heading into 2025 and start fresh? But then the store blew up, like I said, more distractions, golden handcuffs. And then I want to say it was shortly after February, it was right before her birthday in March that we had the conversation. And no matter how I feel, I'm still, I believe in principles and morals and respect, and I was never just going to high and dry leave. It wasn't like I'm going to walk in and be like, this is my last day, I'm quitting on a job I absolutely hate. I literally said, hey, this is what I need to do. I'm doing this for me. I'm doing it for my family. This is the date I can go through. So let's try and figure something out to have the transition and get everything in place and the operating procedures and what's needed from here to there. And the only thing was that I didn't pay attention to the date. So it was a little awkward where I said I wanted to leave at the end of April. And that just so happened to be in the middle of a week. It was a Wednesday, which was also my day off. But I realized the week before that it was the middle of the week on a Wednesday. So I said, I looked at Tatiana and I said, I don't want you to be upset. I don't want you to feel like I'm going back on my word. I don't want you to feel like I'm in the golden handcuffs again. But being who I am, I cannot leave in the middle of a work week. I have to leave at the end of the week. Like that was it. So it was like
and that
May
wasn't
2nd or May 3rd. It wasn't that big of a deal.
But the reason that like it kind of was like, oh crap, was, and again, didn't make it a big deal. Like we're just like, all right, that makes sense. We'll get through it. It is what it is. But we actually tried to make this transition out of our main business quite a few times. But like, and one time I believe was right before COVID. And then obviously it didn't make sense to transition out during COVID while we were able to grow XYZ. And then I forget, there were like just a few things that happened, or like there were bigger reasons that like we're like, oh, now's not the time, or let's just get through this chunk, or let's this, let's that. And then we finally got up to the point where like, okay, in May, like we will be home and transitioning and like building our other businesses from home in XYZ. And then it was just like, oh crap, didn't realize the month ended on my day off in the middle of a week, 2 days before the busiest day of the week. Like it just didn't make sense. So that's why that discussion was like
was at a conference.
Yeah.
So he wasn't even there. He wasn't even going to come back till Thursday.
So the whole shop would have been closed.
Right. I would have worked on Wednesday anyway just because, but then it didn't make any point because then there's no transition period, there's no cool down, there's no anything. So I'm just like that naturally. I'm not going to just quit on something randomly like that. Even though I did say that I just wasn't paying attention to the calendar. In my head, end of the month was end of the week.
Yeah, and it wasn't even something regular. Like this is your whole baby that you grew. So you're not just like quitting something or walking away from something. Like this is something that you put your entire adult life into, essentially. Yeah. And that's a hard closing of a chapter. Let's talk about what maybe made that decision harder. I would say like money is the obvious thing, because like I feel like we get a lot of comments, or I don't know, like accolades, because like it didn't make sense. Like no, I don't think anybody else would have been able to make that decision. And the only reason we were able to, well, one, because this is exactly what I coach on, but it's like really being intentional on what you're doing and how you're living your life and the decisions that you make, and making sure they're actually in alignment with the life you want to live. But most people don't have that crazy perspective that is like always in the forefront of my mind, which I have like forced to always be in the forefront of everybody else's around me, because it's that important. I really just feel like our life is so short and I'm just not willing to live it.
Well, we talk about golden handcuffs, and I forgot to mention that even though it was the first weekend of May officially that I stepped aside, if I go and look and we talk about the golden handcuffs and why it's like it is a hard decision to make, I still made the decision. And if you recall, I made a comment saying our worst growing year is 10%.
That's huge.
And that was net profit. When I left or stepped aside, we were at 57% gross revenue ahead year to date from the following year. 57%.
That's wild.
Which is unheard of without making like dramatic changes to your business model. And here's a new shocker. We still don't do online. So there was no like, oh wow, what did you do to do that, blah blah blah. And it's just like, be great at what we're always great at. That's how it happened.
Yeah. And then being so great at something and still making the decision that I always describe it this way, and because I think it just visually explains how it made me feel. But like it's like this was like a really pretty golden cage, and like yeah, the numbers look great and the business is awesome, the people are awesome, and everything about it is so amazing. But at the end of the day, I've known my entire life that like location freedom is so important to me, and that was the one thing that this business was missing, was the location freedom. And we just weren't able to reconfigure it in a way to where that was possible, because this card community specifically really, really values a local brick and mortar, and that's what made it grow the way it is, because of that community. And from having that standalone business that also is like way too niche to just like hire anybody to automate yourself out of it, which is super hard, because at the end of the day, we still have to make the decision that makes sense for the life that we want to live. And another thing that really hit us was like we decided, especially through the pandemic, that we were only going to have one kid, which means we get one chance to give her a childhood. We both come from some trauma in our childhoods.
One of us more than others.
Yeah, I was going to say that, but we're even, I don't come from like that much trauma, but like there's still a lot that I actively undo and actively want to be able to raise my daughter in different circumstances. And we get one chance to do that. So we can either decide to do it from an awesome business, which has turned into a cage and doesn't allow any of that location freedom, or we can take all the things we know and all the things we've been building on the side anyway and actually just make the leap to be able to really give our daughter the childhood that we want to give her and like be able to hands-on teach her every lesson that we want to teach her and undo all the things that were passed down to us through our generations. And like Travis's parents weren't really like home that much, so it means even more to him that he can be, actually now I think about it, my parents kind of weren't home either.
Right, but your mom or dad might have come home like after work. Like mine, yeah. Because mine were business owners, there's no cutoff time. The cutoff time is when the establishment closes. So opens early, closes late. Come home for dinner, and then they're going back out to go back to their work. So like, yeah, they still did the thing kind of very similar to me, where it was you made the decision and you had the business, so you could leave to have the dinner, and then you're going back out to work, and then you just have your siblings. So it was different, except neither one of them made the decision to rip off the golden handcuffs. They just kept rolling in the dough.
Yeah, so we were like, are we going to teach our daughter that this is the way? And like, yeah, we provide a wonderful life for her, very better than average for sure. Or do we want to show her that you can actually just make decisions that make the most sense for where you want to go? And we're going to show her that, we could figure it out and make it happen.
And it probably would have been 10 times harder if we already didn't have passive income coming in that we've created over the past, starting from before she was born.
Yeah.
But like having those income streams, it was an ease on the mind knowing that like a financial struggle wasn't on the uprising.
Yeah, even now that I'm thinking about it, some of the stuff we've like created and dove into before Milani was born, and I've always been obsessed with online business and blogging and SEO and just figuring out how to move things online. So even the knowledge that we learned through all these years of like those back-end business systems, we can now like apply moving forward to not only like making those dormant businesses like, pop off again, but also creating new ones and meshing that new knowledge. But yeah, that decision definitely didn't come lightly. It didn't come easily. It got fumbled a few times due to outside circumstances, and that's what happens when you go to like have this big up level in your life. Like, it's not going to be easy. You're not allowed to just walk away. Like, God's going to put these obstacles in front of you to see if you could really handle it and to grow you, because in order to get to your next level, you have to grow your capacity. You have to be able to figure out how to do X, Y, Z plus all the new things you're trying to do. And how do you handle that? How do you become that person? And we definitely pushed some boundaries along the way and fumbled our way forward. And eventually figured it out. We grew our capacity, and here we are now on the other side of, I keep saying we left that business, but so Travis's brother is still running the day-to-day operations. We handle some things from home, and Travis goes in to handle like bigger days or shipments or things that just require more than one manual person there, but there's no like schedule that we're tied to or any set amount of anything that require us.
Or if we feel like he's overwhelmed, we try and step in and help where we can, just because it is a lot. So
yeah, and it's still supplying our lifestyle, and but it just doesn't require, again, the location freedom means absolutely everything to me. And I think I forced this on Travis a little bit, but he's now on board now that we have a kid and everything. It means just as much to him, but that's just like number one for me. So really maybe how I'd like to wrap this up is, I think we are very blessed to be so intentional with how we live. And if there's like one message that I could share with anybody, is make sure you are very intentional about what you want your life to live, or what you want your life to look like what you want it to feel like, what kind of parent you want to be, what kind of spouse you want to be. Like, get really clear on all those things, not just like a good parent, a good spouse, I want to have a fun life, I want to be rich. Like, you really have to get deeper than that, because when you get really, really, really clear on what that looks like it takes conversations like this to realize that location freedom is important for you. Mm-hmm. That's something that doesn't even cross most people's minds. But then once you see it and then you realize how obtainable it is, there's no reason to not go for it. But if you don't actively find that, oh, maybe location freedom does mean this much to me, then you're not actually going to go for it and make the decisions that can help get you there. So other people don't make the decisions that we made because they don't even know that location freedom is the thing that they're missing, and they need to make decisions specifically in alignment with that, because we can make decisions in alignment with more money. We can make decisions in alignment with more family time. But if that doesn't equal like the location freedom part of it, there's still going to be that piece missing, because you didn't dissect that that's the thing that actually means a lot to you. And I've always known I wanted location freedom, time freedom, and money freedom. And that trifecta just creates, I'm obsessed with freedom, as you can tell. It's actually one of my like personality traits or whatever. But again, that's learning to be really, really specific and intentional about those things, because there are many ways you can go about living a really, really, really wonderful life, but they don't all require the location freedom that I require. So I couldn't make decisions going for other things if it would still give me that golden cage feeling. That just doesn't make me happy. And once you see that and feel that, you can't unsee it and unfeel it. So essentially that made the yes more than worth it for me and for us, regardless of the fact that it absolutely is a growing business and probably would be skyrocketing a lot like quicker and more with us in it versus us like hands off. But for me, at least, having the biggest local card shop in the world or whatever that might look like, that's not the end goal. So that's just not what I could strive for. I'm very grateful for how far this got us and the predictability and sustainability and all of that stuff. But I'm really happy in this new chapter where we were able to step away and let that go and spend all of our time together and start a podcast and really let people into our minds and our way of processing. And there's so much goodness that's to come now that we have the time and the freedom to make it happen. Wow, and our daughter just left us alone for a solid 40 minutes to record this, which is like unheard of. That's awesome. It's all been worth it. We're so happy to have you here.
Next one's going to be pretty good. We already have it kind of mapped out of what we want to talk about, but as always, these are winged. They're not actually scripted. So the next one, we have our topic at least ready. And so
it's going to be a good one.
Yep. We leave you with that. And our unofficial outro is always going to be, we might not live in Atlanta, but it's always peace up, A-Town down.
We're going to find a real theme song. Okay, bye. Thanks for tuning in.